Hi YouTube, let's talk about gardening. And I know you're going to say, Ginger, you're crazy because it's March, but it's time to start planning what you're going to do and where you're going to place everything. And so I want to challenge you today to think about planting organically, so no pesticides. And in that no pesticide thing, I want you to think about planting flowers this year in your vegetable garden, because some of these flowers we're going to talk about have benefits with pests. And if we can control the pests, then you're going to get a better yield from that garden. And then everybody's going to be happy, right? And then your neighbors are going to be happy because you're going to give them more out of your garden. Or if you're putting it all away, you're going to be happy because you're going to have more to put away. So I want you to first take out a piece of paper, and anything that you're going to want to put in your vegetable garden, I want you to go ahead and make 2 columns. And I want you to put vegetables on one side and flowers on the other. I want you to put height and spacing of the plants at maturity for both. And then that way, when you get ready to do your diagram, you can space and stagger things out, kind of like going up a set of stairs, right? Very important. That way you're not doing yourself a disservice and hiding things and causing a shade when you need full sun, obviously. And there's Nala, she's going to start howling, right? So got to give her, that's why I'm in here instead of out there. There are beneficial insects to being in the garden, but of course in moderation for anything. And I know you're going to think I'm crazy. You know, we all hate aphids. And if you've never had to deal with them, then you don't know what I'm talking about, but you will if you're a new gardener. So beneficial insects. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I've made myself some notes. I want to make sure I get everything in, so we'll get started. Insects that eat pests are good. Okay, we want them, some of them in the garden. Hoverflies, lacewings, ladybugs, and others are great protection against invasive pests. But some pests will feed on your plants, right? Aphids, mites, thrips, mealybugs, scale insects. You got to remember that there's going to be a host of things that you're going to have to think about and take care of, and not to mention worms and everything. Certain types of worms that are going to grab your tomatoes. I want you to think about choosing flowers that are high in protein. Very important, because I want you to give your bees everything they need while in your garden. Because if they're not getting it in your yard, if they're not getting it in your garden, they're going to go somewhere else to go get it. And that is what you don't want. You don't want to lose your bees from pollinating everything that you need pollinated. So it's very important. If you're not going to consider having your own colony of bees, and having to worry about that, then you're going to want to keep them here. So I want you to choose things that are high in protein. I'm going to give you some ideas, and of course you can Google it and you can read really good magazine articles, that type of thing. One of my favorite magazines, and this I'm not sponsored by them, is Mother Earth News. It's just a wonderful publication. Turn to them or other magazines that may be helpful in you to learn what you're doing. Go ahead and maybe write some of these down. It'll help. Tomatoes like marigolds or calendula and are just really beneficial for the tomato plants. So I want you to think about something like that, okay? So you can plant marigolds or calendula, which is, pot marigold. And then they're just very beneficial. I do it every year for my tomatoes. In fact, I'm going to have a video on harvesting the seeds from marigolds, because I harvested a whole bunch of seeds and I haven't done anything with them yet. They're still in their little seed heads in a container. We're going to do that here before too long and put a video on that. Chamomile. So there's an added bonus to raising chamomile in your flower bed, or your vegetable garden, excuse me. We could call it a flower bed, huh? Everything's going to be flowering and everything else, and you're going to be harvesting from it. So chamomile, you're going to also be able to harvest that and actually have the tea from it, which is very good for you and kids and grandkids. It's very soothing. I like to put honey in my chamomile, but certainly you could sweeten it if you want with something else. But there's 2 uses. Common daisy. Any type of daisy in the daisy family Very good for the garden. Very, very good for the garden. And pretty, right? Because then you can cut those flowers, take them in, put them in a lovely vase, and then just brighten up your day. And then you'll smile every time you go by and you see that you have fresh flowers in your home. And it just helps with the air quality and everything. Poached eggplant. It's an egg plant. It's actually a plant. It's a flower, okay? I don't want you to poach eggs and toss them in your garden, but there are uses for eggs in the garden. That's somebody else's video. I have an egg allergy, so I'm not going there with poached eggs, right? Poached eggplant is actually a plant, okay? Don't poach eggs and throw them in the garden. Onion and garlic, very beneficial. So, go ahead and make sure you're planting those. Parsley and carrots. Here's where you're going to think I'm a little crazy. I want you to go ahead and I want you to plant parsley and carrots, but I want you to let an eighth or a fourth of it actually flower. I want you to let it grow tall, and I want you just to let it flower. Don't harvest it, just let it grow, because it's going to be beneficial to the bumblebees and honeybees. So I know that sounds crazy, but it is very, very beneficial. So I want you to go ahead and do that. Comfrey is very invasive. So I would suggest, if you're going to do comfrey, which is a ground cover, is maybe to build like a mini raised bed to put the comfrey in. Put plastic down, make a small raised bed, put the comfrey in. We're going to talk more about comfrey and calendula later, but because they have other uses that in the old days. But for now, comfrey would be beneficial in your flower beds and your garden as well. But it is invasive. You got to be careful. So something to think about. You could do prairie flower, right? You could do French marigold or African marigolds. Cosmos. Guys, cosmos is perfect for your runner beans and your tomatoes. So you're going to get a benefit of a really pretty flower. And I want you to go ahead and plant those near the beans and near the tomatoes. Imagine how pretty your tomatoes are going to be with marigolds and cosmos and, that type of thing. So when you're choosing flowers, I want you to choose high protein flowers. And that's easy enough to learn into Google and to ask master gardeners. Maybe you've got a homemaker extension club that somebody has some of that. If you have a local garden club, if you live near me in Indiana, there's garden clubs that you can turn to that have a wealth of knowledge that you may not have. It's just something to think about, okay? But, you can Google all of this. So take your piece of paper out, make your 2 columns, write spacing and height. That way you stagger things. Sunflowers are wonderful with cabbage. But you're going to have to make sure once it starts growing that you start staking it at an early age so it doesn't fall over and just totally kill the cabbage, right? Because as soon as they start to grow and any high winds come, or as soon as the flowers start to come out, they get heavy and they start falling over. So you're going to have to think about where you're planting your sunflowers. I always have sunflowers in a little spot in the very back corner of my garden, and then that way it's pretty for one, and for the other, people just think, oh, she likes sunflowers. Well, no, there's a benefit to doing that in the garden, and it is helpful. So think about doing that. Don't plant your flowers too far away from your vegetables, okay? If you're one of these that want nice, beautiful rows, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're having to hoe it and keep it up and whatever else. I would suggest mulching and or using fabric. Plant maybe enough spacing in between, or use hanging baskets, shepherd's hooks, above some of these things. And then that way you get the benefit of the flowers and the vegetables, and the bees are happy and they're staying in your yard, pollinating your things. Very important. You've got to worry about the aphids. You've got to worry about the mites, the thrips, the mealybugs, the scale insects. But there are ways around it without using chemicals and things. So I'm going to go ahead, and I think I've got everything I wanted to talk about. We talked about cosmos, calendula, chamomile marigolds, onions, garlic, parsley, carrots, let them flower, let just a few. You don't have to let the whole half the row grow, but I want you to consider that. And we'll jump off here. Have a great day. Like my videos, hit subscribe, and hit the little bell if you want to be notified when I put another video out. Be kind to each other, and if you're in a bad mood today, you don't have to put venom out there. Just keep scrolling, just keep going, just don't even put anything negative. I don't want that. I want us all to empower each other and just to be kind to one another, okay? So have a wonderful day, get ready for those gardens, and we'll talk soon.